Oh my god, there's so much to play!
That last Steam sale already killed my backlog, but be not afraid, brave traveler. I've got you covered. Today we're gonna look at 5 awesome video games that I am currently playing on my Steam Deck. Welcome to Peter's Nerd Cave, where we look at the weird, mysterious, and unexplained. Do you enjoy exploring? Maybe the occasional assassination of troublesome opponents? Not your style? How about all-out war? Boy, do I have the game for you. There's something for everybody here, and I'm talking about Total War Warhammer 3. Total War Warhammer 3 is a Civilization-like game, combined with Warhammer. There are over 20 different playable races, all with wildly different heuristics, mechanics, and units. Both well-known races, like the Dwarves, the Wood Elves, or the Dark Elves, and lesser-known, like the Frozen Kislev, or the Tzeentch, however you say that. To kick off a game, you can either play the Warhammer 3 prologue with the Frozen Kislev, or the Warhammer 3 story campaign, which is only playable with the new Warhammer 3 factions. The last option is to play in the massive open sandbox called Immortal Engines, where all the factions of all the previously released games and DLCs are available. This is where you have complete freedom, and you can choose any of the 20 plus prior released factions from 2 prior games. After my prologue campaign with the Frozen Kislev, I started my first campaign with the Grand Cathay. I opted in for the story campaign, and this race was recommended for beginners, or so they said. The Grand Cathay is a faction that consists mostly of humans, and they are ruled by dragons. Yes. It gives off a strong Imperial China vibe. There's even a large Chinese wall they are supposed to defend from the Chaos Waste. My best efforts with the Grand Cathay quickly went down the crap. After a few hours of holding my own against the Chaos Waste factions, they broke through the wall. After this, they started showing up on my doorstep as if I was giving away free candy on Halloween.
Free candy!
After that, the Grand Cathay and my campaign were, as they say, history. For my second endeavor, I decided to go a completely different route, with the Ogre Kingdom. The only thing these little fellows care about is meat. The whole economy revolves around it.
We'll throw a great feast!
Still early on in the campaign with the ogres, but so far it's more my style than the Grand Cathay. What I love so much about this game is how different each race plays. Like I said, the cannibalistic ogres are so different from the Grand Cathay. And there are over 22 different types of races, and they all play completely different, all have their own characteristics and their own style of playing. I would highly recommend this game. Because I like creepy and spooky. Naturally, there needed to be 1 or 2 of those kind of games on here. And that's why the next one up is Ghostwire Tokyo. This one's a Bethesda game. Bethesda's known for games like Deathloop, Fallout, and Elder Scrolls. The reception for this game wasn't great. I'm not sure why, because I really had a good time in the 8 or so hours that I've spent with it so far. Play as Akido, a Japanese teenager with a grumpy disposition who lives in Tokyo. He's on his way to the hospital to visit his sister, who doesn't have long to live, where a massive supernatural event occurs. During this event, all the people in Tokyo disappear. Lucky for him, in his hurry to get to the hospital, he crashed his motorcycle and died. You might wonder why that's lucky, and I'm going to tell you. What this means is that a benevolent spirit called KK with superpowers is able to take over his body. And this is where the lucky part comes in, because this also protects him from the supernatural hocus pocus we just talked about. At first, as you would expect, Kido and the spirit, KK, don't get along, which is apt to happen as one gets his body possessed, I imagine. But the more you play and all the harrowing experiences the two go through, the game becomes more like a buddy cop movie. But not really, though. Akido and KK never really get along, and they both seem to have the constitution of a grumpy teenager. They don't like sharing anything about their life, and everything stays pretty superficial, which is a bit of a bummer. The game plays in a beautifully realized but gloomy version of Tokyo. It rains non-stop, but the game looks good doing so. Glistening windows, pools of water everywhere. Who doesn't like the sound of that? But seriously, the city looks great. It's a real lived-in city, albeit there's nobody there anymore, which is definitely creepy. Scattered cars, garbage, leftover luggage, clothes, everything. Quite unsettling to walk around in this lifelike city completely devoid of people. If you're expecting a horror survival game, something in the trend of Resident Evil, Silent Hill, or maybe even Fatal Frame, you'll be disappointed. This plays more like a flashy shooter, where you use different kinds of colorful magic to vanquish your enemies. Don't worry, later on this list I have just the game for you if you're looking for a good survival horror game. Now, the enemies look like faceless characters of the disappeared. There are headless schoolgirls, the umbrella businessman who saunters at you menacingly. Then there are the eerily giggling children under blankets dressed up as ghosts. These are quite creepy. To take down these enemies, you have to expose their core, which you do by either shooting at them with your flashing magic or bow, or sneaking up behind them. There's even a skill tree to upgrade abilities like sneaking speed, core exposure time, and your weapons, of course. All feels good and fun as long as you keep in mind that this is not a survival horror game and more of a flashy shooter with supernatural vibes and sometimes some eerie atmosphere. builders aren't for everyone. I understand that. Staring at cards for hours on end, trying to figure out how to take an opponent down, and slowly building out your deck does indeed seem boring. You gonna do something or what? But I can always get excited for a good new deck builder. For me, the deeper and more complicated it gets, the better. And this next one is special. Let's talk about Inscryption. I'm going to try and not give too much away, because you should really try this little gem for yourself. First thing that sets it apart from any plain old deck builder are the game mechanics. The whole game revolves around sacrificing the cards you have on the board. And with that, I don't mean sacrifice them in battle for the greater good either. Let me explain. Each card you want to play costs a number of blood tokens or bone tokens. You get these tokens, and I think you know where I'm going with this, by sacrificing the cards you have on the board. For example, say you have 2 squirrels on the board. You can now sacrifice these 2 lovely critters, summon the deadly adder. The adder can now attack the cards from the opposition, and a direct hit gets accompanied by a satisfying drop called on an old-fashioned balance scale. And when the balance hits the bottom, you guessed it.
Game over, man! It's game over!
It's all very ominous and creepy. Outside of battle, you traverse a map where you choose different paths with different activities and encounters, such as campfires, sacrificial tables, and encounters with weird denizens like the hunter who sells you pelts. Then, at the end of each map is a boss fight, and this is where you put all your hard-earned skills and cards to the test. And on the map is also where you build your deck, and you upgrade your old cards and get new cards. Aside from all of this, there's another cool mechanic that I don't want to say too much about, but I'm going to talk a little bit about anyway. So the map is laid out as if it's a board game on a table, and in between battles you can get up from the board and walk around in this creepy cabin. What I'm saying here is that you're playing a board game inside of a game, and things only get more and more strange from here. The art style is amazing, and it's this kind of lo-fi 3D retro look that really works for the game. The look, together with the ominous sounds and the soundtrack, really make for a suitable creepy experience. I would wholeheartedly recommend this game, as this one really is something special. Next up's another indie game like Inscryption, but in a completely different vein. In spirit, this one is a tower defense game, but hang on, don't leave yet. I say in spirit because in practicality it's so much more than that. This is another hidden gem, I think, and we're here to talk about Domekeeper. YouTuber legend Northern Lion played this a bunch on his channel, and he turned me onto this one. So, the game doesn't come with much of a backstory, but from what I've gathered, you're on an alien planet, sitting in your dome, trying to protect it from aliens and the like. And what more background story do we really need? To protect your dome, you use a movable laser, and this is the tower defense part of the game. This is also where you upgrade your dome with speed, weapons, different lasers, different gadgets, and all that kind of stuff. Then, in between each wave, you go digging and mining under your dome, and this is where the fun really starts. At this point of the game, it becomes something like SteamWorld Dig. You traverse the depths under your dome with your trusty jetpack. Underground, you try to dig up materials and resources to help you upgrade your dome, jetpack, and drill. And then while you're underground, the timer helps you keep track of how long you have before the next wave hits. And of course, you want to be back by then, otherwise you'll be introduced to the game over screen. Everything feels very smooth and effortless. One moment you're zooming around underground with your jetpack, digging for resources, and the next moment you're in your dome, getting that laser upgrade you've had your eye on for a while now. Then, seconds later, you're zapping aliens with your newly purchased laser of doom. This is a really fun game to waste a quick 15 minutes here or there, and it's really easy to get caught in the one more time trap that we all know so well. Now that's the sign of a good game. Last but not least, we end with a AAA title that everybody's heard of and knows, but is criminally underrated, I think. And I'm talking about Resident Evil 3, the remake. Now, I know why a lot of people hate on it. It's short, there's a lot of backtracking, they got rid of the live events, what the heck? And I can agree with all of that, but still, Resident Evil 3, to me, is one hell of a game. Still a fun romp through Raccoon City, plus it has the Nemesis, who is arguably the most terrifying enemy we've ever seen in Resident Evil. And don't argue with me about Resident Evil 2 and Mr. X. He doesn't even come close. Let's start at the beginning. Resident Evil 3 of 2020 is a remake of the original classic of 1999. Like all the other Resident Evils, except for maybe Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6, it's a survival horror game, which means you're going to be scrounging for ammo, you never have enough inventory space, your health bar is always on red, and every few minutes you're gonna get the bejesus scared out of you. I know it's an acquired taste, but it's a lot more fun than it sounds. We play as Jill Valentine, one of the Special Tactics and Rescue Services, or STARS for those of you who like abbreviations. We find Jill Valentine in Raccoon City, ready to pack it all up and leave the city in her rear view mirror. Sadly, this never happens, as the city gets overrun by zombies, and on top of it all, she gets targeted by the Nemesis. Imagine that. Even the Terminator would duck out on a fight with this guy.
I'll be back.
That's how Resident Evil 3 starts, and it doesn't let up from there. Like I mentioned, it's a bit shorter than the other Resident Evils. Some people have finished it in 5 or 6 hours, but to be honest, in the age where games take 50 to 200 hours, looking at you, Tales of the Kingdom, a shorter, more intense and streamlined game isn't always bad, I think. Resident Evil 3 features the revamped design of Resident Evil 2, which means gorgeous graphics, better controls, aka normal tank controls, and a fun story. And the best part of this game is of course the Nemesis. This thing shows up at random, often inconvenient moments. And believe me when I say that this is an intense affair. This guy does not let up. Weapons don't harm it. You can't kill it. All you can do is hope to temporarily stop it. I picked this game up on a nice discount, it's totally worth it. And those are the games I'm currently playing on my Steam Deck. What are you playing? And what do you think of these games? Do you have any recommendations? Well, check them out, leave it in the comments. Otherwise, please like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one.